morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Power Hour session for 2019. My name is Kevin, and today we have Romulan that will be presenting the Creo 5.0 overview. The format that we will follow today will include a 45-minute demo and then a 15-minute Q&A session at the end. Please send me questions directly in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of the demo. Without further ado, I will now give the floor to Romulan.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. And thank you everyone for coming today. Welcome to our very first Power Hour session of 2019. My name is Romulan, and we'll be going over Creo 5. Now, I know some of our customers are coming from Creo 2 and Creo 3, so we'll actually be going over some new enhancements and new capabilities that have been added since Creo 2. Now let's actually start off with a brief introduction. Once again, my name is Romulan Mirador. I'm an application engineer and instructor at NxRev, and I've been with the NxRev team for about 1.5 years now. And before I joined the team, I had gained experience in other CAD software. So I have actually taught high school engineering students how to use Autodesk Inventor. I've interned at NASA Ames Research Center and worked on a small satellite project, and I helped with CADing some of the components up for that small satellite, and we worked in SolidWorks in that case. And now I'm working primarily in Creo and helping with training and support at NxRev. On our agenda, once again, we'll go over Creo 5 and some of the new enhancements in the user interface, some part modeling enhancements, and we'll also take a look at some other capabilities that have been included since Creo 2. And with that, let's actually go ahead and jump straight into Creo 5. So here's Creo 5. They've done away with the ribbon, they've done away with the model tree, and the status bar, and it's all gone. Just kidding. They are still there. And actually, if you are looking for where that ribbon and model tree has gone, all I have to do in this case is hover above the top to get my ribbon, hover to the left to get my model tree, and then if you need your status bar, it's just right at the bottom. Okay. New in Creo 4 actually is this capability to work in the full screen mode so that it's easier to use all your real estate on your screen, as well as take some quick snapshots of your model if you need. You can also declutter your screen just a little bit more by relocating your InGraphics toolbar. So let's actually do that. I'm going to go ahead and right-click on my InGraphics toolbar, and let's relocate that into the status bar. Okay. So if I hover above to get my status bar, you'll see my relocated InGraphics toolbar. Now, we can actually get away with working in full screen mode because another new enhancement in Creo is that we have the mini toolbar. So what that means is if I click on any of these edges here, let's say this edge, you'll notice right away there's a pop-up that appears next to my cursor. This is our mini toolbar. It's going to populate with the most commonly used commands, including activate if I need to activate a component in the assembly mode, open up that component in a new window, edit a definition, or suppress the item. Also located in the mini toolbar is what is called a select from parents. So I can actually access a subset of my model tree through the mini toolbar. And this is sensitive to where I am clicking. So in this case, I highlighted or selected this green edge. And let's actually walk up this mini model tree. So I can see that this edge is a child of this feature, which is a child of this part, which is a child of this sub-assembly, and then we can get all the way to the top level assembly. And then alternatively, I can also select my parts or my features from this mini model tree. There we go. Now, if I can continue working with that default mini toolbar. However, if there is a command that I use often and it's not located in that mini toolbar, well, no worries there. I can actually customize it. So say, for example, I get to this ski, and I want to replace the ski component. I don't have the replace command in my mini toolbar. However, if I right click and customize, I can actually search for that command and place it into my mini toolbar. So let's actually type in the first couple of letters. It will bring up anything that has REP in the name, and I can actually left click and drag it into the mini toolbar. Another way is if I don't remember the name, but I know where it is in the ribbon, I can go to the ribbon. And so let's say I'll go into operations. Here's my replace command. I can click and drag that into my mini toolbar. Okay, so let me just remove that extra one and select OK. Now, when I click on the ski, I should see the replace command in my mini toolbar and activate it from there. And let's say cancel out of that. And it should bring up my replace dialog box. All right, just canceling out of there. Let's actually look at another, what is the benefit actually of that mini toolbar? So really, it's really the biggest benefit is that you have less mouse travel. So in this case, I can focus on my design instead of hunting for all of my commands. Let's actually take a look at another functionality that's included in my mini toolbar called Zoom to Selected. Now, if I go into my my selection filter in my status bar, I'm going to change this to part. Now, for those of you who are coming from Creo 2 or Creo 3, do note that the default selection filter has changed. Instead of actually picking up components or features first, the default selection is going to be geometry instead. So those are things like edges and surfaces or datums. So let's change that selection filter to part. And now let's say I want to pick up or inspect some features or some components in the chassis, in this lower chassis over here. Now, if I pick up that rod, let's say that I want to look at that a little bit closer. Now, instead of using my scroll wheel, I can quickly zoom into it if I use the zoom to selection button or command. And I can use this mini toolbar as in the model tree as well. So let me pull up that model tree at the left. All right. And let's say that I'm looking and scrolling down the model tree and I find some components that I want to see, but I don't remember how they look like. I can actually click on one of those and use my zoom to selected. And it will quickly zoom to that selected component. Now I can easily identify what my component looks like and also where it is located in the assembly. Now, as you can see, my component is blocked by some surrounding geometry. Now, if it so happens that I just want to isolate this one component, typically when we do that in Creo, we would either need to do something like creating a simplified rep to isolate that component, or another way is to actually grab all the rest of the geometry surrounding it and hiding it. I feel like that's a little bit silly to do just because I just want to see this one component. But new in Creo 5, we have new show and hide options. So let's actually take a look. I'm going to just right click to bring up my mini toolbar. Now, in addition to my hide or show command, I also have a show only command, a show all except, or an unhide all. Okay. Now, let's say I just want to isolate that component. I'm going to show only, and it will hide away all the rest of the geometry and just take me to what I want to see. Now, if I want to undo what I've just done, let me deselect, right mouse button, and reset the status. It will bring back my complete assembly. All right, so I know some of us might not be used to the full screen mode, so let me actually bring back our ribbon and model tree. And I'm going to exit full screen by selecting F11 on my keyboard. Okay. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and bring back my in-graphics toolbar. I'll right-click and relocate that to the top of my graphics window. Let's take a look at another enhancement with our selection itself. And I'm going to use my subassembly, my front suspension subassembly. So I'm going to just select one of these parts, and I'm actually going to walk up my mini model tree and get my front suspension assembly. All right, let's open it from the mini toolbar. And let me get a front view. Now, let's actually say that I would like to create a simplified rep. I do want to get just the right side components of the suspension system. And in order to make that into a simplified rep, I typically would need to just start selecting the components I want to include. So I can hold down my control key and start selecting on individual items. But notice that this might take a little bit more time and can be a little bit time consuming. However, you do have a faster way, a more efficient way in order to select all of your components. In this case, you do in the part and assembly mode, you can actually use a selection window. So if I click and drag from left to right, I get this inside box selection, and anything within that box will be selected. If I miss some components, I can also use the cross box selection, where I'll click and drag from right to left, and anything that the box touches will be selected. Now I have a faster way to select all of my components, and I can now drop this into a simplified rep, for example. So let's select this to be master and create that simplified rep. All right. Now, I'm not going to get into all the details of simplified reps. However, in a future Power Hour session, my colleague and fellow application engineer, Urbano, will actually be going over large assembly management, and we'll talk about simplified reps as one of the topics. So let's go ahead and finish this out. And just toggling in between the two reps, I have my master rep of my front suspension and also just my right suspension system. All right. Let's get back into our snowmobile assembly. We are going to now move forward and talk about some of the new enhancements in part modeling mode. And for that, I'm actually going to be using this mounting bracket that's located right behind my panels in my snowmobile. So let's switch this up and pick on just that mounting bracket, and I'll open it up. All right. So taking a look at our mounting bracket, I have a couple of tasks that I need to finish out. One of the tasks is to create some of the mounting holes, similar to these holes that you see on the left. So I've already created a sketch of that hole. In fact, I've created one sketch of those mounting holes. So if I take a look, so I have actually created one sketch to define where all of my holes are going to be located. And now typically when we do that in Creo and we wanted to extrude these out, what will happen is that everything that's a closed loop part will actually be extruded at the same exact depth. Now, that's not my design intent. And if I wanted to actually extrude it that way, I would need to create multiple sketches. But that's not the case any longer in Creo 5. I can actually utilize what is called a sketch region. So let me cancel out of this sketch. And I'm going to change my selection filter to sketch region. Now, I can pick up any of these parts of my sketch. In fact, I can use my selection window. So I'm just going to go ahead and select everything in that window. And I want to deselect certain items. So in these cases, these are going to be holes and excluded, or actually extruded out at a different depth. I'm going to go ahead and extrude. And let's go ahead and flip the direction. Let's move this up a little bit more. Get that ready. And also let me remove material. So let me right click remove material, and make this a nice clean number of 4. So 4 units into the model. I also want to do the holes itself, so I'm going to select the holes, and I also want these two to go through the entire geometry. So extrude, flip, and let's set this at through all. All right, so I just used one sketch and picked only certain parts of that sketch to extrude at different depths. This is now available in Creo 5, and it could be really helpful for faster geometry creation. Now, I can also utilize that sketch 1 as if it were a master sketch, for example. So in that case, if I go back to sketch, I can see that I have added in some constraints and some relations. For example, let me actually turn those on. My hole diameters are all driven by the same diameter. And I can go back into the sketch and make changes to that. So I'm just going to exaggerate this a bit and change my diameter to 5. You'll notice that all the diameters of the holes will change along with it. And of course, that will drive all my downstream features. So it is a different approach or a different technique that's similar to master modeling that's now included in Creo. So moving forward, let's actually go into the middle of the bracket. And we're going to start actually sketching another slot that's needed through the top of this, through the top surface of this bracket. I'll change my selection filter. I'm going to pick up this surface, and I'd like to extrude. Now, right away, when I get into my sketch view, I'll notice that my sketch plane is blocked by geometry. Okay? And if I wanted to actually see where I'm sketching on, I may need to just rotate my part there. So in this case, I'll rotate this and I can sketch in 3D and see where my sketch plane is. However, if I get back into my sketch view, I actually can utilize an option called Clip Model, and that's found in my graphics toolbar, where I can clip away the model. And what that effectively does is clip away or section off my part so that I can see directly on my sketch plane. And now I can see what references that I can use, or just basically where I am going to place my sketches. All right, so let's drop in a slot. Now I can sketch a slot myself using my entities here, or I can use the palette tool. The palette tool itself is not a new feature in Creo. However, I've noticed that even some seasoned Creo users are not fully aware of what this entails or what the palette entails. So you do actually get some regular polygons, some profiles itself, and then some other shapes. Now, if you are looking for the slot shape, in Creo, they call it a racetrack. So let's actually pick up that racetrack and drag that over. And I'll close this out. And let me scale this down to a nice even number there and finish out importing. All right, so I'm not going to worry about dimensions for now. Let's go ahead and say OK. And now I have my extrusion. Let's say I do want it to go through the back surface of my bracket. So I'll just go ahead and flip this again. All right. And then I can actually toggle on my to selected depth option. If I hold down my shift key on my keyboard and use this drag handle, I can snap it to that back surface. All right, and I didn't have to go through my ribbon in order to change my depth option to selected. Now, there may be a case that I need to actually extrude this to a certain depth. Let's say not all the way through, but I wanted it to be offset 2 units away from the back surface instead. Now, typically, what I would need to do is drop in another data plane in order to use my toSelected command. However, Included in the two selected depth option, I have what is called offset from surface. So if I go into my options tab, I can actually toggle on this offset from the surface. So instead of utilizing another datum plane, I can go in and offset from that certain surface, maybe 2 units away. So now I have an extruded section that goes all the way in and then off, but reaches 2 units away from that back surface. Let's finish this out. Now our next part modeling enhancement will actually go and take a look at the far end of the bracket itself. Now I have these 2 cuts and I do want to mirror those over. So I'm just going to turn on the plane display and I've already created a mirror there. So I'm going to go ahead and select these extrude. So extrude 2, I believe the other one is extrude 3. So I'm just going to select that from my model tree and mirror from the mini toolbar. All I have to do now is select my mirror plane. And one of the newest enhancements in the mirror tool is that I can actually see a preview of my mirrored features. This is something new in Creo 5, which was not shown in previous versions. Now it does eliminate the guesswork whenever I try to use the mirror tool itself. Now I did inherit this bracket from a colleague of mine. So let's say I'm inspecting this and I noticed that he didn't apply any rounds. So I'm going to go ahead and add in those rounds. So I'll select these edges, edge 1, edge 2, and round from my mini toolbar. I'm going to go ahead and give this a smaller radius and finish out my round command. Now, of course, my round is not going to propagate to my mirrored feature. Okay. And if I did want to include that in my mirrored feature, I would typically need to either redo the mirror again and make sure I include the round. However, in Creo 5, we have another mirror enhancement where instead of redoing our mirrors, we can actually edit the definition. So let's do a little bit of reordering. I'm going to take the round and drop it right before the mirror. And instead of deleting the mirror and redoing this, I'm going to edit the definition. And we get this reapply mirror button. I'm going to select that, turn it on. And this actually allows me to pick up more references that I want to include in that mirrored feature. So let's say I want that to include that round. Okay. So now it has those 2 extruded cuts and that round. I'll finish out the feature. And now I can continue on working. Now, inspecting this a little bit further, I noticed that my colleague also didn't get to apply draft into this model. And thinking about it, I've already applied some rounds. And sometimes, and when I think about those rounds, I am thinking, oh man, I have to redo this. In previous versions of Creo, if I wanted to apply a draft to a surface that had rounds at the edges, I would have to remove those rounds. In Creo 5, that's no longer the case. I can go in and select the surface. Let's apply the draft. Let me pick up my draft hinge. Now you'll notice that the rounds are highlighted in green. And if I move or change my draft angle, it's actually keeping the rounds where it is. So what Creo is actually doing in the background is automatically removing the rounds and then automatically reapplying them every time I change my draft angle. So let's keep this draft angle at 1. Now it's no longer going to stop me from modeling. I can continue on. And if I wanted to include that draft in my mirrored feature, well, let's actually do this once more. I'll rearrange my model tree, go back into the mirror. All right, edit definition, reapply the mirror, and go ahead and include the draft. All right. right, so let's say that we finish out our mounting bracket. We can go back to this snowmobile assembly, and we'll see the changes in our snowmobile assembly itself. All right, so I'm going to take a look at other capabilities that have been introduced in Creo since Creo 2, and we'll take a look at what is called design exploration. Design exploration is an extension and is a tool that allows designers to quickly and easily investigate alternative design concepts. So let's say you're at the end of your design for this chair assembly, and now you're playing the what if game. What if we use the blue material? Or what if we use the green leather as the fabric? Or what if we wanted to use a base that had 3 legs instead of 5? Well, using the design exploration extension, you can investigate these different concepts without needing to create and save multiple copies of your parts. So let's go ahead and see that in action. In this case, I'm going to pick up this simple Space Pilot mouse that we have. You notice that we have a cap here that's a little bit blocky, and then we have this standard palm rest that's pretty flat. Now, let me actually start up the design exploration extension. So let's go to File, Manage Session, Design Exploration, and Start. It'll pull up basically a dialog box where I can give this a descriptive name. Designs, let's call it Space Pilot Design. And I'll bring up a design exploration tree. Okay. Now, once I start adding in some changes to my model, I can actually save those changes into this design exploration session. Now, I already have created some parts that I've suppressed in this case. However, you can create and make any of your models while you're in the design exploration session and include them into your assembly and the design exploration tree. So let's say I'm going to take a look at the different caps that I have. I no longer want this, so I'm just going to go ahead and suppress that cap for that joystick. And I'm going to bring in another cap, something that looks a little bit cleaner there. There we go. I also have a palm rest that's ergonomic. So let me get rid of my standard palm rest. I'll suppress that as well and bring back in or resume palm rest that's ergonomic. You notice that it's no longer flat. We have this nice little palm rest to use. Now, if I do like that design and I'm finished with this design concept, I can add a checkpoint. And let's call this my ergonomic one. All right. And then if I ever need to go back to that, how it looked beforehand, I can always go back to the pre-modified and it will show me my pre-modified design concept. And then I can toggle back to my ergonomic design concept instead. Now let's say I want to also see this cap with the standard palm rest. So I'm going to make another design change here where I'll suppress the ergonomic palm rest and bring in the standard one. Now I have another design concept. I can add this into my checkpoint tree or my design exploration tree, and I'll call it standard. And now I have another design concept that I can take a look at. So I have my ergonomic one, and I have my standard one as well. Now let's say that we are going into, we're happy with the ergonomic design, so I'll go back into that design. And maybe I want to make another change. Maybe I want to apply some appearances to this Space Pilot mouse. So let's actually bring up something. Let me pick up a color. I'm going to get a plastic black and apply it to the palm rest itself. So let's select and finish. So now we have a black palm rest. And if this is a design I'd like to keep, I can go ahead and add that in as one of my checkpoints. and I can call this the black palm rest. All right. If I need to toggle back to the original, let's activate that original one. And let's see another design choice. Let's color it with blue instead. So let's go in, make that blue, finish this out. And if I needed to save it, let's call this blue. All right. Now I can toggle in between the blue palm rest, the black palm rest, or just the original simple gray palm rest itself. Now, in my opinion, I don't really like the blue palm rest, but hey, that was one of the design concepts that we went over. But that's the whole point of the design exploration session. We can investigate all of these changes and decide what we want to keep and what we don't want to keep. Right? So let's say that I am very happy with just this ergonomic design. I don't need to apply any more appearances. I can save this. Let's say accept that change. For now, I'm not going to save this here, but I'll accept the changes and it will keep the Space Pilot mouse with that a certain cap I've added and that ergonomic palm rest. And if I wanted to get back into the pre-modified one, I can actually. Now let's say I'm happy with this design and it's time to actually present it to a customer. All right. So what I want to show the customer is a pretty nice view or a nice photorealistic CAD so that they can see how it looks and actually even see how it may look in their room, for example. So I'm actually going to use PTC's Render Studio. PTC has collaborated with Luxion and obtained a license of Luxion's KeyShot technology. This KeyShot technology is embedded in Creo's Render Studio application so that you can create photorealistic images of your design. The Render Studio extension is actually offered in the base licensing package of Creo. So if you're interested in knowing more about what's offered in the base licensing package, just please let us know during the Q&A. So let's toggle on Render Studio. And that KeyShot technology that we'll see will actually let us manipulate the model and see the changes in real time. Let me actually get back to that. Give me one moment to pick that back up again.
Sorry, everyone. She's experienced some technical difficulties. She'll launch the Creo and try to open up the Space Pilots once more.
All right, sorry about that, everyone. My computer needs a rest. All right, so let's actually take a look at our real-time rendering with our Space Pilot mouse. Now let's actually put this into a perspective view. All right, and as you can see, every time I manipulate my mouse itself or the window itself, you'll notice that this real-time ray tracing, this is the KeyShot technology, and it allows me to actually view in real time how a rendered image. Okay? And you know, while I'm in the rendered studio, let me actually go over the Photolux library. So if you're trying to create a rendered image, you do want to try to get some appearances that are also photorealistic, right? So let me open up my appearances manager. And you do have access to the PhotoLux library. If you just go into the drop-down menu here, we'll see some standard ones, some legacy appearance materials, but we also have access to some more realistic ones. Let me actually take an example for the metals. And if we pick up, let's say, the aluminum scratch, you'll notice that there is some texture in this material that we can apply to our parts. Okay. Now, in this case, you can even add in materials like fabric. So here under miscellaneous, we can choose if we want to use maybe that brown woven fabric, some black leather, or even a blue woven fabric itself. Let's actually apply some plastic material appearances to our space pilot. In this case, let's pick up some glossy material. I'm going to pick up the black one and activate that. Add it to the space pilot. Now we can see how glossy that is. Let me add another appearance as well. Let's use just this green as an example, and I'll apply it to the casing itself. All right. So as we see, let's actually get into a close-up corner. We can see that green plastic glossy material. I can edit the transparency of this or even the appearance of the color. So I'm going to go in and edit. And instead of opaque, let's do translucent. So now we can go in and see the guts of our space mouse. Close this out. Let's actually get a side view of it too. And we can see that it turns translucent itself. All right. Now, as I am moving this around, once again, I can even apply in a couple of scenes. So if I want to see how the light affects our models, I can apply in an indoor scene. Let's actually take one up. Let's find that through our scenes. Here's an indoor scene. It will place our model indoors, and it will show you how the lighting affects the model itself. All right. As you can tell, after I leave my model alone for a while, it starts getting a really more photorealistic picture. I can also render to a file. So if I open up render, I can set up a number of samples that I want or a maximum amount of time that I wanted to render my image. And I do have a couple of images already available. So let's go back in here. So I used the space pilot itself and rendered this image. Now this actually didn't take any more than 5 minutes. Actually, it was less than 5 minutes to make that. But it looks actually pretty realistic in this case. On my case, I even have a different view of it on this next slide. So you can use that Render Studio in order to create those photorealistic images for your customers or to communicate across your company. Now, in this case, this finishes our live demonstration portion, but I do have a few more topics that I'd like to speak to. So our very first topic that I'll talk about is automatic representations. Now, this automatic representation is a retrieval option in Creo to help you open up your assemblies faster. Using the automatic rep option opens up a simplified version, or what I like to describe as a lightweight version of your assembly. And the immediate benefit of the automatic rep is that it saves time. Okay? So it will retrieve and load your assembly faster. So I've used this assembly that has about 700 parts, and I used it as a benchmark. So I used open regular, and it took about 31 seconds to open up this assembly. And then I closed this out again and erased from memory, and I tried using automatic, and it actually opened in almost half the time. So once again, automatic rep can help with retrieving your assembly even faster, and this is something that will also be gone over in the large assembly management power hour session. If you are wondering about the specs that I had to open up this assembly for my laptop, I have it listed right over here. I have the i7 processor, 16 gigabytes of RAM, And I'm using the NVIDIA Quadro graphics card. Another topic I'd like to speak to is PTC's Unite technology. The Unite technology is actually introduced in Creo 3. It is a collaboration tool that gives you the ability to open native CAD files from SOLIDWORKS, NX, CATIA, and Inventor directly into your Creo session. So as you can see, I have this model tree, a Creo model tree, and it has all of my Creo parts and assemblies. And I also can include a SOLIDWORKS part, an NX part, or even an Inventor assembly directly in my Creo session. Now, this does take away the extra step of converting it into a neutral file, or step or IGES file. And you also have the ability to save as a SOLIDWORKS or Inventor file from Creo. Some other new extensions that has been introduced in Creo 5 is the topology optimization. Topology optimization can be used to find the optimized distribution of material in your model to meet your goals, such as reducing mass or minimizing thermal stresses or deformations. So you are actually staying within the Creo environment and using this extension. What you'll do is load up some of your constraints, load up your loads, add in a volume region, put in some analyses of your design objectives. You're going to mesh it out, and you're going to go ahead and run the optimization. And you can start off with this solid block, but after you run that optimization tool, it will give you another model. So as we see in these results, it will actually eliminate any excess material that's not needed. So that is one of the extensions that's new in Creo 5. The other extension new in Creo 5 is the flow analysis tool. So in this case, PTC has partnered with Simerix to provide a fully embedded flow analysis tool in Creo so that you can simulate and analyze the flow around your models without having to leave the Creo environment once more. Now here, we're still in the Creo environment. You can run from left to right to create a fluid domain, add in the materials that you're going to use. Okay. Find out the physics or what do you want to solve for. Generate that mesh, and then run the simulation. After you run the simulation, you get your results, and now you can easily visualize that flow through your models. All right. So as for this as for this demonstration and overview of Creo 5, that is actually all that I have for you today. And I believe that we are actually just at the 45-minute mark. I would like to thank you all once again for joining, and also encourage you to join us in our future Power Hour sessions. Our next one is actually with Kevin, our host, who's going to talk about how to work with third-party CAD data. So working with those non-native Creo files in your Creo session. And that will be in February. In March, we'll see Windchill and its other capabilities other than CAD faulting. And in April, we'll talk about how Windchill can be connected to an ERP system and how that can help with your BOM management. All right, so thank you once again, everyone. And at this time, we'll go ahead and actually open this up for Q&A.